I was ashamed that my best thought process came from prison. I was ashamed that I had to learn how to be the best version of Kevin from prison. Because when I came home from prison, I didn't want anything to do with prison. I didn't want to feel like I was, I didn't want to feel institutionalized. I didn't want to feel like I'm always thinking in prison mentality. And I had to unpack that because the reality is I did go to prison. And the best version of Kevin was born in prison. And the best thought process, the cool, calm, collected version of Kevin was born in prison. Before that, it was emotional unintelligence, anger, and a lot of bullshit, you know? And so once I unpacked that in therapy, and once I was able to put down that shame and understand that the healthiest version of me was born in prison, and I can be proud of that, and I can wear that on my sleeve, man, that was beautiful. That was everything I needed, because then I got to be me. Well, you already said my name, so I'll start there. My name is Kevin Papuga. I am currently a research assistant and project coordinator at Wayne State University's Center for Behavioral Health and Justice at Wayne State University. 70 months in the MDOC. I grew up more in the first 3 years of incarceration than I did in the first 23 years of my life. I realized that life was a series of choices and consequences, and if I wanted different consequences for reality, I needed to make different choices in the moment. Right here, right now, not in a week, not in a month, not in a year, right? It's Ram Dass, right? Be here now, right? All we have is this eternal now. So what am I doing with it? I started to ask those questions in prison. I started to develop a sense of self in prison. I started to develop a trajectory in prison. Everything that I'm doing right now came from prison. I graduated high school with a 1.6 GPA. I went to 2 different universities in 2 years and dropped out both times after soccer season because I didn't give a fuck. I dropped out with a 0.0 GPA from Saginaw Valley and then a 0.0 GPA from OCC. It was crazy. I got to go to Jackson College, the PEI program. They were only accepting people that had that had 36 months or more left on their sentence into that program at the time. All right. I had already rocked out that first 3 years of prison. I was underneath my last 3 years. I wasn't eligible for Jackson College PEI program. My mom found out about Jackson College through a third party. She called the school and got the school to put me on a call out without the MDOC realizing that I wasn't supposed to be on the call out. And the school, when I got on that first school call out, I got to talk to I don't even know what they called it, but it was like the representative of Jackson College, whoever that was, right? And I explained my situation, and my mom had offered to pay cash for the first semester. She was like, yeah, get him as many classes as you can. 2 classes, 3 classes, 4 classes, full-time, whatever. I ended up taking 2 classes that first semester because I was like the last person to register because I wasn't supposed to be able to register. And dude, it was crazy. I got in Jackson College. After that first semester, I got a 4.0. They grandfathered me into the program, and they sent my mom a refund check for the 2 classes. It was fucking beautiful. So even in the prison system, already having things work for me that I'm not even doing myself. Having things working outside the box, but within the confines of the system. I was already involved in phenomenal programming, Shakespeare Behind Bars, which I would talk to you about for hours and hours and hours. It's the absolute best program I've ever been a part of. Saved my life. ShakespeareBehindBars.org. Look it up. Kurt Toftelin, he's the founding director. He's become one of my best friends. So I was already involved in good programming. I was already asking hard questions. I was already becoming this new version of self. But Jackson College opened up the door, man. I had some great mentors. I talked to some great people. I always asked questions. And I started to think about what I wanted to do, right? And at first I was thinking English, but then I really got into psychology. And then I really started to have deeper conversations about both of those and what does that look like moving forward into a career, not just an area of study. And then I started to realize that I really needed a doctorate in both of those to be relevant, like right away, because what the fuck does an undergrad in English do for you? But that's already putting me 10 years down the road, 10 years into the future, and I gotta be thinking about when I'm going home in the first 5 years, right? And what's that gonna look like? So I knew I wanted to work for the university, is I guess what I'm getting at. And I learned, and I discovered that while I was still in prison. I knew I wanted to come home. I knew I wanted to go to a university. I knew I wanted to finish my undergrad. And then I knew I wanted to, after my undergrad, take that student position at the university and turn that into a full-time position at the university. Because if I'm a full-time employee at a university, I get free tuition assistance. So now my grad program is paid for. I just got a free associate's degree from prison, so let's try to keep this going, right? So that was my thought process. Come home, get some sort of pre-professional job at a university, and turn that into a full-time position. When I was at Jackson College, we became, what were they called? Ambassadors? Yeah. So we helped other students, right? We helped them register for classes. We helped them with homework sometimes. So I already liked that role, like a little bit. And I thought that I could do something similar to that here at Wayne State University. You know, I came down to an admitted students day, which turned into an extracurricular event called Transitions 2.0, which I didn't need to go to. An old Kevin, pre-prison Kevin, definitely would not have gone to. And that turned into me getting 3 different job offers from 3 different individuals, all offering the same position to me at Wayne State on the same day. It was wild, man. And so I ended up being hired on as a transfer student ambassador literally 2 weeks after I came home from prison in 2019. And I learned really quickly that my role as a transfer student ambassador, helping people to transfer to Wayne State just like I did, was like pseudo-advising. It was like false advising. Like my job was very much, I can't give you the answer, but I can point you to this department that can give you this answer. I can't do this for you, but the nursing department can do this for you. My job was to know what I didn't know. It's a good exercise in humility.
I was gonna say.
Right? To be talking to people all the time and be like, yeah, I don't know that, but we can figure it out. Let's get on the website. Like I told people all the time, like the Wayne State search bar is your best friend. You don't know an answer, go to the Wayne State search bar, type it in, treat it like Google. Like we want to talk about resources, like those simple resources like that, things that you can do for yourself that can save those conversations, that can save driving down to Detroit and meeting with the transfer student ambassador and having an hour-long conversation, and then he points you to the psych department, and then you got to go to the psych department, when in reality, if you could understand that you could go to the Wayne State website yourself and you can type in your question to the Wayne State search bar, it's going to take you to the psych department. And then you're going to go to the psych department, and then you're going to click on an advisor, and then you're having a conversation with a real advisor. So that's all a dream, right? That's all like my trajectory. This is what I'm going to do. And in 5 years, when I get home from prison, I'm going to have graduated from a university, and I'm going to have gotten a full-time position, and I'm going to have gotten a grad degree, and I'm going to be able to write my ticket wherever the fuck I want. I came out knowing that. I came out like this is my trajectory. You can't stop it if you wanted to. Like, good luck, because this is what I'm going to do. I know how to learn. I know how to study. I know how to be a student of self. I know how to be humble. I know how to understand that some things are a blessing and some things need to be worked hard for. But the biggest lesson, and prison taught me this too, was patience. Oh man, how many times have you ran into somebody that just wants to get shit done? Patience, right? Letting things be what they are. So when I was incarcerated, and when I was nearing the end of my time of incarceration, and we're thinking about schools, when I went to Saginaw Valley State University, I went there to play soccer. I didn't get outside of my comfort zone at all. I mean, that's a school in the middle of a cornfield. It's not a very fun school. I didn't pick it for geographical location. I didn't have any intellectual thought of why I picked it. I went there to play soccer, you know? I dropped out after first semester. Next semester, I did the same thing at OCC. I went there to play soccer. I made that soccer team without even being enrolled at the community college. I remember I got pulled off my tryout in the first 10 minutes. Coach was like, dude, you're the best dude on the field. You're on the team. And I was like, cool, sign me up for classes, bro. Like, so I didn't want to just mindlessly make a decision. So I started asking myself like important questions of like, what do I want out of a university, right? What do I hope to get out of it? What are the experiences that I want to have when I come home? Because this is my life, this is my time, and only I can make these choices. So I wanted to be in a campus that had a good location. Downtown would have been preferable. And so right away, that kind of made me think of Wayne State, of U of M, and of Grand Valley. And Wayne State was almost a no-brainer because of its geographic location, because it is located in the heart of Detroit, because we are off Woodward right now. We got LCA right down the road. We got the Lions Stadium right down the road. All the businesses that you want to get involved in are right here. The things that are happening in this city and have happened in this city in the last 20 years are amazing, right? The way this city is changing and blowing up, I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to be a part of like this like revitalization of Detroit. And I applied and I got accepted and I got a full ride, which was fucking crazy. Very blessed for that. And I came down here and the rest is kind of history. I networked really good throughout my time as a transfer student ambassador here at Wayne State. I didn't excel with my GPA like I did at the community college level. University is much harder than the community college, but I put in a lot of work outside of the classroom, like I said, into like my networking and into people that can go to bat for me and people that know my work ethic outside of just doing a paper, right? And because of that networking, I ended up becoming the commencement speaker of my graduating class. Shit, I wasn't even out of prison 2 years yet. I'm still on paperwork. I'm still meeting with a parole officer. And Wayne State's choosing me to give the address for my graduating class. And it felt very validating. Like everything I was doing meant something. Like people could see me outside of my family, right? Life is a series of choices and consequences, right? Like that's kind of my game. Like that's all it is. Like in a very simplistic way, like what do you have in life other than choices and consequences, right? And so giving that address was just a really beautiful affirmation of that like my choices ultimately led to this moment. So May 21, COVID's done. I graduate. I got off parole on April 3rd. So I get off parole on April 3rd. I graduate on May 10th, and I hit the road on May 11th. And I went cross country all the way to Colorado. I took 2 months. It was beautiful. I took 2 weeks to drive to Colorado. It was absolutely amazing. It was one of the best things I ever could have done for myself, just to give myself that peace of mind and to allow myself to experience things that I hadn't experienced and that I waited for, that I was patient for. I didn't break parole to go across state lines. I didn't do anything stupid like that. Like, you know, I had my ducks in a row and I knew what I wanted to do and what I wanted to accomplish. And at the end of the day, once I accomplished it, I rewarded myself. And it was a beautiful time, and I was still working for the university at the time. I was obviously turned remote because of COVID. And part of my job as a transfer student ambassador was doing all the orientations for Wayne State. I would just do like a little transfer segment at every orientation. And so I was out in Colorado, and I was doing a virtual transfer student orientation, and I got contacted by Dean Steffi Hartwell, who's the Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences here at Wayne State University. And she had headhunted me for a position that she was creating called the Education Transitional Coordinator Program. So just like I transitioned home from prison into higher education, she wanted to emulate that. And she really thought I was the best person to do that, to kind of head that program. And it was a grant that was funded by the Michigan Justice Fund. This is like a really pivotal time, like in my life and in my story, because I had all this success. I'm off parole. I'm living this vacation life, but I'm still being responsible, and I'm feeling good. And I'm given this beautiful opportunity. Who wouldn't want that opportunity, right? To be given a grant, to be given a program, to be able to put their mark. And you know, I thought about it, and I declined her. I thanked her for the opportunity. I was very grateful that she thought about me in that capacity. However, I had never ran a grant before. I had never run a program before, and I want to always do my best, and I'm not going to set myself up for failure. and I'm not going to set her up for failure, and I'm not going to set this program up for failure. And I told her that I would love to be involved in the grant in any way, whatever she saw that to be, like as a consultant or something like that. But I didn't want to be the lead of that, and I was sure that something else at Wayne State would open up. So it was a moment of faith and a moment of humility, and ultimately it was the right call. Because they ended up finding Terrell Tops to be the ETC program coordinator. And when I got to interview with him, after 5 minutes, me and him were brothers. Him and I, we would have walked the yard. We would have spent days together, man. And he was the guy for the job. He was perfect for the job. Tall, dark, handsome, deep, booming voice. People are going to respect him going into a prison. And, imagine me going into a prison and talking to a bunch of brothers, talking about, yeah, I got lived experience. Yeah, it doesn't translate, I mean, it just, sometimes you got to look the part, right? And Terrell, he has lived experience. He's got the look, he's got the talk, he's got the knowledge. Perfect chef's kiss for like this position for him. Yeah, dude, it was great. And him and I just became brothers, and I got to be his consultant. And I liked being that behind the scenes. I don't need to be the face of anything. I like being able to help where I can help and give an idea where I can give an idea. And if you like it, cool. If it helps, cool. If you don't, sorry. After I denied that position, it was only like 2 weeks later that I was contacted by my boss, actually my boss's boss, who was the director of educational outreach. And he had heard of an advising position that was opened up in the Mike Gillett School of Business. And he told me to apply for it. And so I wanted to be an advisor. Like I said, that was kind of the next logical step for me. And I did apply for it. And it was one of those moments where it was just same thing, the stars lined up. It was perfect. Before that interview was even a quarter of the way through, I knew it was my position. Going back to that trajectory that I was on, that you couldn't stop, right? Going to school, getting the degree, getting the grad degree, going on the next thing. The only thing I haven't done yet is get my grad degree on that list. So when I became an advisor, I got a lot of responsibility really fast. It was my first full-time position, my first time being full-time employed at a university. I had a lot of systems to learn. Some I had already known from my pseudo-advising position. I had good intuition, but yeah, I had a lot to learn, and I was going to need to do things in that role that were a lot more than just advising students, right? There are always things to do, logistics behind the work, degree audits, and just things that happen behind the scenes in higher education. So in that 2.5 years, I actually got to do a lot of amazing things, including touching students' lives by advising them and watching the success stories and sharing my personal story with them behind closed doors and watching them be able to identify with somebody. Being able to hear my story of incarceration helped them put into perspective their argument with their dad and their inability to study because they had this argument, right? Being able to hear about kind of the realness and the rawness from an advisor that's sitting across the desk from you and saying, hey man, it's okay. You're gonna be able to wrap your mind around this. You're gonna be able to get it, I was also allowed to continue on with the ETC program, being the lead consultant for that, which was amazing. I got to touch a lot of lives in that role. And also I got to teach for the first time. So in 2021, I taught my first college class. It was a first-year seminar course. I really enjoyed that, and the reason that opportunity arose is because I got to be the coordinator for a Wayne State program called First-Year Interest Groups, which was essentially a cohort or community for students that were entering college from high school that needed to unlearn those high school habits and needed to relearn some successful habits that were going to make them successful college students and successful people. So I got to head that program for the entire school of business. We ended up making it the most successful first-year interest group in the entire university, which ended up being a really big deal. And I only ended up staying in that role for about 2.5 years before I made my way over to the Center for Behavioral Health and Justice, because like I said, I knew I wanted to get into higher education, but good programming saved my life. So I wanted to get into a niche in higher ed where I was working with good programming. I didn't want to just stay on the academic side of higher education, because higher ed is so much more than that. And this job that I'm in now is even more beautiful than I could have ever even imagined or hoped for, because this little niche inside higher ed, I mean, I'm in like community behavioral health. I'm at a center for behavioral health and justice that's located within a college at a university, but I'm really dealing with the community, right? So it's just a very beautiful role. So on a day-to-day, my job looks a lot like doing research. So I'm primarily a research assistant that does project coordination inside jail diversion. So I primarily work with rural county jails in the Upper Peninsula, and I do research on them. I get to find out what their demographics are. I find out, what the needs of the community are, and I do all this peripherally before I go into the community and I start actually talking to people. And that's a different kind of research, right? So day to day, a lot of me on the computer, a lot of me nosing around websites, a lot of me working on spreadsheets, and doing community outreach. So I work primarily with county jails. So it's kind of interesting as somebody that did time in prison, getting to work with sheriffs and undersheriffs and jail administrators. But I talk to them on the phone. I have working and professional and friendship relationships with them now, which is kind of crazy. But it's beautiful. So apart from the research that I do to get to know the counties and get to understand the minds that I'm dealing with, it's coming up with a game plan. But that's never me in and of myself. It's working with those community officials and what does your community need specifically and how can we help? So I guess I've gone around the bush a little bit. So I deal mostly in community behavioral health. So what I do with these rural jails is I'm actually trying to work with MDHHS, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, on a grant that they funded to bring mental health resources to the communities of the Upper Peninsula. And a lot of people don't realize that the Upper Peninsula is kind of like an island in and of itself. They don't have the resources that we have down here in southeastern Michigan. And there are rural communities within the Lower Peninsula that also don't have those resources, but the Upper Peninsula is decades behind. It's kind of sad, and I'm very thankful that it's now actually being talked about and understood for what it is, and the lack of resources that they have, and that the state is paying attention and trying to offer those opportunities. And it's more about mental health resources in the community. So what can we provide here in-house? So you don't need to drive down to Grand Rapids to get that mental health treatment, right? What can we do here in Dickinson County? I mean, it's still the same. Nothing's really changed too much yet. We're kind of in the beginning stages of trying to implement some of these mental health resources. The shape that it takes is different from county to county. Again, my job, and I'm not a social worker, even though I work for the School of Social Work, but it's a very social work-esque saying, is to let me meet you where you're at, right? How can I help you with your needs? So that's really the role of me going into each county, is identifying the individual county's needs and where I can best meet them and help them. So Gogebic needs are not Houghton's needs, right? And Gogebic is a county, sorry. Houghton is also a county. Yeah. No, but they're just not the same needs, right? So Gogebic, and this is, I'm not actually talking about what they need. So one county specifically wants the help in person. They want people to come into the jail, right? And the other county might not necessarily want that. The other county might say, you know what, no, that's too much effort. We don't want to have these professionals in here. We want to do telehealth. That's all we want. Nobody says that. Nobody only wants telehealth, right? But those are like the differences, where you're going into a community and I really, when I go into a community, I don't try to anticipate what they're going to want, and I don't try to compare them to other counties. At the end of the day, after I leave the conversation, it's good to do comparison analysis, and it's good to see where similarities are and where differences are, and where, you know, lifting up this county can also lift up this county. But in the moment, I'm there to listen. In the moment, I'm there to hear what they're talking about and what they think they need, because they, as the sheriffs and the undersheriffs, they're the law enforcement. They're the ones that deal with the community. They're the ones that unfortunately have to lock the people up if they have to, right? Or need to distribute mental health resources that they currently don't have, right? And so it was actually kind of funny when I started going up to the Upper Peninsula as an ex-convict. I definitely had some prejudgments about the type of mindsets I was going to be dealing with the law enforcement. And to my surprise and to my excitement, they were all completely wrong. I was really kind of expecting some. I was wrong. Yeah, I was 100% wrong. I was thinking rural, right? I'm thinking kind of out in the woods. I'm thinking echo chamber, right? I'm thinking white, kind of racist, kind of, you know, not really trying to help minorities, not really worried about mental health, lock them up, throw away the key mentality. You guys, I have not met any of that. I rarely deal in totalities. It's been such a breath of fresh air going up there and getting to talk to these county officials and getting to see how much they care and getting to see that they already see the issues. They see the needs for mental health resources in their communities, and they feel like their hands are tied behind their back. They don't know where to get the funding from. They don't know where to get the help from. They don't know where to get the technical assistance from. And then the sustainability moving forward. If we implement a new policy or procedure, okay, that's great for right now, but what does that look like in 5 years? How do we make this sustainable moving forward? And that's where we come in as a center. But it's not fighting anybody to get them to that mindset like I thought it was going to be. I really thought I was going to go up there and need to kind of pull some teeth and get them to see my perspective, when in reality, when I went in with an open mind, and I'm so glad that I did, those judgments that I had melted away. So they're always guarded. Most of the time they're guarded when a conversation starts, because I'm not coming in just as a representative of Wayne State. I'm coming in with the MDHHS representative as well. So when county officials hear the state coming in with free money, they roll their eyes. They say, okay, sounds good, what's the catch, right? And so that's usually the first 5 minutes is kind of that skepticism. But then when they hear about the grant, when they hear that we have $450,000 that we are willing to let you have a piece of, as long as it's for mental health resources, and the only thing that you need to do as a community to participate in this grant is allow us, Wayne State, to come in and implement what we call a K6. It's a Kessler 6 screening, and it goes right into their intake process. It takes about 3 minutes, and it's only 6 questions long. That's why it's called the K6, and it helps identify serious mental illness and co-occurring disorders within the jail population. So that's the only catch. There's no huge catch. There's no huge ask. We're asking you to add 3 minutes to your intake process for every inmate, so we can have the data, so we can understand who has mental illness, how serious it is, who has co-occurring disorders, how serious it is, what is the percentage like in a prison, how does that translate out into the percentage of the community, and now we have data. And data is armor. Data allows us to then go back to the state and say, yo, thank you for this grant, and that was really cool, but now we need it to be sustainable moving forward because we have the numbers to back it, right? This wasn't just a good thing for 1 or 2 years and now you get to pull out, right? No, here's the data that is going to prove that these communities continually are going to need these mental health resources, and they're going to need to evolve over time, just like it has here in southeastern Michigan. This is my place. This center, they're my people. I had a really hard time finding my people when I came home from prison. I didn't fit in with my old friends generally, and I didn't generally want to. I didn't really fit in with my family as much as I thought I fit in with my family, and that kind of hurt. But I didn't want to. I wasn't liking the thought processes that I was interacting with. I wasn't liking the perspectives that I was running into. It took you how many years to get home from prison?
Yeah.
For real, how many? Like, it doesn't, like, you don't need to answer, but like for me, it was 5 years, 10 months, right? And in that time, I worked. In that time, I set up a mindset that wasn't gonna get beaten out here. In that time, I looked in the mirror and I looked at things I didn't like about myself, and I began to change those things that I didn't like about myself. And when I came home from prison, guess who I met? I met old Kevin. I met old Kevin that said, yo, remember me? Yo, I like to smoke weed. Yo, I like to party. Yo, I like to run after girls, bro. We didn't get to do that for 6 years. Let's do that, bro. When I came home and I'm battling old Kevin and I'm living at my parents' and I'm offered to smoke weed after my first month, and I do, and I realize that's not who I want to be. I don't want to be old Kevin. I don't want to fall into old patterns, old routines. And I think the best choice that I made for myself, it was to go to a new geographical location so I could be the new version of myself and not have to battle the old version of Kevin. In Detroit, bro, nobody knows me. Nobody's offering me weed. Nobody's thinking I smoke weed because I'm not smoking weed, right? Because that's my choice. And I got to be that version of me without needing to constantly be reminded of, oh, I remember you when. Oh, you think you're something now because you don't want to smoke weed with us? What the fuck is that? You know, like, your best resource is you. Choose yourself. Choose the new version of yourself. Eliminate the opportunities for that old version to come in and dominate the conversation. Because we all have demons. We all have old aspects of self. We went to prison for a reason. All right? Now, how much work did you do in prison? Mental work, emotional work, spiritual work, right? And how are you going to do that when you get home? Okay, I skipped a huge fucking resource. Sorry, you can put this at the front of the tape. Therapy.
Yeah.
Therapy. Go to therapy. Dude, listen, bro. I got a counselor, psychologist, 2 months outside of prison. Best thing I could have ever done. Talking, being validated, sharing, unpacking, being vulnerable, getting called out. We need that. I won't put that on y'all. I needed that. People can call you out and you don't really care what the fuck they say, but yeah. For me, if it's a homeboy calling me out, I'm gonna take it serious because you only care about me, right? Family calling me out, probably gonna take it serious depending on the family member. But I've always deferred to professionals. I always want like the professional stance. Like I always want the professional's opinion. So when a professional is talking to me about me, right, in a psychological sense, I'm listening. That carries weight for me, right? Because, and obviously you got to find a good therapist, and obviously you shouldn't blindly agree with everything your therapist says. But going to therapy is helpful. Going to therapy is beautiful. Going to therapy probably saved my life when I came home from prison, because I had to unpack a lot of stuff that I didn't realize I had to unpack. Identifying with like reality on reality's terms, not Kevin's terms, right? So understanding where you're at in life, what you're coming home to, and making choices for you as an individual, right? So if you want to go to school, nothing's going to stop you from going to school. You might need to make some sacrifices. You might need to be patient. You might not get the classes that you want right away. You might need to get a job that you don't want to have so you can afford to go to school. There are sacrifices that everyone needs to make. And I guess like the sacrifices for me weren't as drastic because of my family, right? And again, and I know that's not fair. And I know that that's real life, right? My mom and my dad, aunts, uncles, siblings, 2 brothers, 1 sister. My cousin Chris, man, holy fuck, excuse my language. You guys, I wouldn't have been able to move down to Detroit and change my parole and go to school here and apply a new version of myself without my cousin Chris. He lived in Detroit. He was an architect. He lived over off in the Milwaukee Park Lofts, little ghetto apartment complex over off East Milwaukee Boulevard. Well, I got to live there for $20 a month. That's not something that's like easily accessible to people, but I wouldn't have been able to do that without him. One of the biggest resources outside of family and outside of like self definitely has to be my faith community. It had to be, I'm a devout Catholic. I was before I went to prison. I became even more so in prison, and that didn't change when I came home. I think the only thing that changed is I'm a very open-minded Catholic, and most Catholics are very rigid, and it makes it hard for me to connect with them in community. But they were still there for me as a community, and that was very beautiful, and I was very, very thankful for that. So family resources, personal resources, faith resources, and then getting down to Wayne State, education resources, right? Asking those questions, going to the admitted student day, the Transitions 2.0 event. I didn't need to go to that. Everybody in that room, in that breakout session, was invited to go to that event. I was the only one that went. Coming to Wayne State, I mean, any higher education institution is going to have a crazy amount of resources for its students, but you need to ask. You need to look for it. The big three: transportation, housing, and employment, right? Transportation, if you can move to a city, if you can parole to a city where they have the public mover, you know, Grand Rapids has some public transportation, Ann Arbor has some public transportation. So if you're trying to solve transportation and you're moving to a city to solve that, do not move to the city you came home from. Don't do it. Don't go back with your old connects. You can go visit, okay? You can go visit once a month or, you know, once every other month, but go to a different city. Go try it out. Go be that new version of self in a new city. But you utilize public transportation in the cities. I hope more things start to shake down with the housing market. I mean, housing is tough out here on the streets for everybody, especially those that are coming home with limited to no resources. Man, remember everything's temporary. Cause man, yeah, I can't even, like, that made my stomach hurt, like thinking about like somebody coming home with like no resources and like nowhere to go, and like obviously you got to parole somewhere. That might not be the ideal situation. You might not want to live with your niece for forever, or you know, that halfway house for forever. Housing, transportation, and employment. Employment's probably, you know, those are the big three. Yeah. CEO, that's an acronym. Google CEO, right?
Where is it out of?
They're actually, there's different regions for the company. So they're actually all over Michigan. Okay. And they have different regional directors, but they are primarily out of southeastern Michigan, I do believe. But they might be able to know somebody in your area, right? So that's like the whole thing is like, call these people, ask these resources, and they don't have something in your area. Well, do you know somebody that does, right? Humanity for Prisoners is a great resource for people in prison. A lot of people might not even reach out to Humanity from Prisoners when they come home from prison because that's not their specialty. Okay, just because they can't help you doesn't mean they can't put you in touch with somebody that can. Mm-hmm. Understand, again, it's temporary, right? Whatever that first job is, it opens the door for you to put it on your resume, for you to establish work history. Nation Outside, reentry specialists, right? So there's the need to have somebody kind of walk with you through the process of reentry.
Their Tippler program.
Yeah, and so, that's big in Genesee County. Nation Outside is obviously rocking down here in Detroit, but they're working with the DOC to provide those reentry specialists, is their title. Link up with a reentry specialist. Link up with somebody that has paroled home and has done it successfully. Please just be patient and work on your goals and understand that it's not forever. Don't force it all. Don't burn yourself out. Have a checklist that you're knocking down one or two things off every day. Take your time. Understand where you're at and understand where you're going to go. Have that trajectory. Have those goals that nobody's going to stop you from reaching, right? But don't force yourself to go from here to there right now, because that's not possible, right? Understand that it's going to take time. Put God first, whatever that means to you. You got to live for something bigger than yourself, right? And when you have that, whatever that is to you, cherish it and hold on to it and know that your whole life is going to be beautiful as long as you continue to make the choices that are right for you, to live in the consequences that you're comfortable living in, because every choice has a consequence. So put God first, make good choices, and be patient. That doesn't mean be lackadaisical. That doesn't mean don't do shit and expect shit to get done for you. But be patient. Don't get angry. Don't get upset. Don't freak out and smash the Apple Store. All right?